can only think of adjective vomit. Hey everyone, so ignore the nuggy booty she is currently eating right now. She hasn't had any of her breakfast all day, so that is definitely a win, even though she loves doing these things whenever I'm needing to film. But anyway, this is going to be a very sporadic, all over the place vlog. I'm really bad at vlogging, but I'm trying to get better at them because I feel like there's something that you guys enjoy watching too. I know I really love watching vlogs as well, especially if I'm multitasking and doing things. It's always nice having someone else's voice in the background and just providing that company to you. So yeah, this is gonna kind of go all over the place. You're gonna see some footage from back in July. So July was a little bit of a difficult reading month, also because we were very, very busy. So we actually ended up going to Denver Fan Expo. However, I only took this clip for it. We are getting ready to go to Denver Fan Expo. I got my Donnie Mommy shirt on, and I have a few of my bracelets and stuff like that. I also have my fidget on and everything, so yeah, excited to go. A little bit nervous, very toasty. It's very humid here in Colorado, but yeah, excited to see how it goes and can't wait to film different moments throughout Fan Expo. And then literally didn't film anything after. I was a little bit overwhelmed. If you've ever been to a fan expo, you will understand that it is crowded. There are so many people there. There's a lot of moving parts, and for someone that doesn't really leave the house often, it's a little bit overstimulating. So I didn't get any footage from that. Then the next thing we did was we went to Crested Butte. So there is a wildflower festival that happens then, and my future mother-in-law, my partner's mom, she invited Charles and I to go and join her. And so we ended up having to go and drive separately because Charles forgot completely that they had a little counselor thing that they had to go to. We were actually there before the wildflower festival started, and so we got to go and roam around. Oh, yep. Thank you. Did you eat your breakfast finally? You got stinky breath. You do, you got stinky breath. But I'm glad you ate. Okay, she's gone. So we didn't really get to see a lot of the events that were potentially going on. However, we did get to go and ride up the ski lift and get to look at things that way. And then we took a very impromptu hike on the way down, which was what led to my really wacky sunburn that you will have seen in my nerdy book haul vlog. So that was kind of what created that very weird sunburn that you will have seen in previous videos. And then we went to the Run Fair, and I did get like a few small clips here and there of that as well. So because of how busy things were, I didn't really get a lot of reading done. I had a lot of fun memories that were made, but reading and tackling books on my TBR didn't really happen. So then we move on to the month of August. And to start things off with, I got my hair cut. So this is how long my hair is currently. I have not had it cut, I think, since the beginning of the year. And it's very long. I've been feeling very much like Cousin It or The Grudge. So I'm thinking what we'll do is probably chop off maybe like this much. And then after the wedding next year, I'll probably do more and donate my hair. But that's the current game plan. This is how it looks. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I just got home. This is how the hair looks. So it's like down to here before. She gave it loose waves because we're gonna go and see a show later. Yeah, a lot shorter. I'm very, very happy because it's gonna grow super, super fast. But I loved the salon so much. It was awesome there. So yeah, I might have to contact them to see about wedding hair and makeup. My hair was a lot longer than this, and I decided I needed to go and get some chopped off, just kind of keep my hair nice and healthy. I was also getting very overwhelmed with my hair, and there have been times that I was just like, you know, I'm gonna pull a Mulan and I'm just gonna chop it all off. But we have engagement photos coming up in October, and then the wedding is next year. I know my hair will grow back really quickly for next year, but for the engagement photos, I'd still like to have sort of longer hair. So that basically catches you up to where we are at today. So you might know that Jan Agaton's Full Moon Readathon has started, and I really want to participate to the best of my ability. And I have today off. I took today off as a mental health day because your girl was stressed out and overwhelmed, and my brain was just mush. So took a little self-care day so I could have a long 3-day weekend, and we're gonna do a little bit of reading. I meant to do more reading when I started the day off. However, I've been obsessed, and I mean obsessed, with Tiny Bookshop. That game has just been on my mind, and any chance I can play, I've been playing on a separate playthrough, and I've just been having a blast, just decorating my cute little bookshop, going and deciding how many books I want to stock of each genre, and then seeing if that's actually successful or not, or no one decides to pick books from that genre, because that tends to happen. So I've been doing that. I did actually finish one book, and it was the only one left by Riley Sager. I did start this one, I think, on the first day of the Full Moon Readathon, which I believe was Wednesday, and I did finish it today. I was listening to it as an audiobook while I was working and everything, and I'm not quite sure if I want to put this on the card for the Grim Reaper for death, or if I want to have it on... The card escapes me right now, but it's the one that has a plot twist. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue reading some of the books I have picked out, and then depending on what one I'm missing, that will determine which card that one goes to. And then I started listening to A Fairy Hunter's Guide for the Recently Undead. I started this one months ago when I got the ARC from NerdFam, and then it's already released, so I was like, you know what, let's just go and get an audiobook for it and listen to it that way. I've kind of been dragging my feet on it because, to be honest, the way that the text is written, it's just... I can only think of adjective vomits, and that feels really mean to go and say, but it's just there's so many descriptors that the amount that are being used is making it very difficult to visualize and actually immerse myself in the story, because all these words are getting thrown at you and it automatically pulls me out of the story. So I'm honestly back and forth on that one. So this one, the reason I decided to go back to it is because it has 8 words in the title, and on the spider card there's the number 8, and Jan was saying that it could be like 800 pages for the book, or the title has to have the number 8 in it. Basically something revolving around the number 8 needs to be involved. And I was like, oh, this book is one that I've been meaning to read. It has 8 words total in the title. And I think I'm on chapter 14 right now, and I've been listening to it while playing Tiny Bookshop, which one of the prompts was playing a game. So I've been playing a game, which is Tiny Bookshop. And yeah, I've been listening to the book. I'm on chapter 14, and to be honest, I might end up DNFing it. I just can't get into the book. And I'm always very grateful for ARCs, and you know, I requested this ARC through NerdFam and got accepted, but it's just not vibing with me. This is the second time I've picked it up and it's just not working. So yeah, we're gonna go and probably step away from that one for a little bit and actually read a book that I'm enjoying a lot more right now. So this one is Hollow by Taylor Groth. Hopefully I'm saying their last name correctly. It's a young adult LGBTQIA+ book where the main character is on the autism spectrum, and they recently got diagnosed by it, and they're kind of dealing with a lot of really significant life events that are happening. One of them being that when they moved away from their hometown and their friends, they ended up having a huge meltdown, and they kind of blame themselves for why their parents split apart and had a divorce, and now their mom, they had to move back to their previous home with their mom. So while that meltdown happened and they're dealing with the divorce of their parents, they're reconnecting with a lot of their childhood friends and trying to reignite those friendships that they missed, but also didn't keep a hold of while they had moved away. And so in order to rekindle that friendship, they get invited to go on this camping trip with them. However, this camping spot has been known to basically cause people to disappear, and no one can find them. There's lots of missing people posters and things like that. And so our main character, Cassie, she goes on this trip with her friends, ensuring her mom that she'll be okay. And the first day of the trip seems fine, but then something odd happens where a fight breaks out and suddenly the group is kind of separated for unknown reasons. And that's kind of where I've left off. This book has been really great so far, but there's been a lot of like emotional heartstring pulling moments that have been good, but have almost led me to tears. And I've been very curious to continue reading this, so I'm going to stop blabbing and stop doing this whole recap because this is supposed to be a vlog, and I've been talking for way too long. And I'm gonna get myself positioned over there on the reading couch, and we're gonna continue reading. Kiko's also singing in the bathroom, so if you can hear him, he's just singing. He's singing the song of his people. So I'm currently on chapter 13 right now, and Cassie has been separated from her group of friends, and she's kind of been found by this group of people that live out in the woods. They have their own little village, and they occasionally say that they find campers and they'll go and help them, and they kind of seem a little bit off, but also extremely friendly. However, there's just like little things here and there that just seem a little bit weird. Like they're speaking in a language that Cassie doesn't even recognize. There's also these weird carved dolls and also a bunch of crows. So it definitely feels very eerie. And I want to say that I read somewhere that it had some hints of Midsummer in it. That is a movie that truthfully I've only ever watched once, but I could definitely see why someone mentioned Hollow kind of being like that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there. However, tomorrow is a penny a page day at 2nd and Charles, so we are going to be going to a bookstore, and I will be getting a treat for myself for the full Moon Readathon. I say a treat, but probably it's gonna be more than a treat because I think we can get up to 5 books with this whole deal. And I also plan on bringing a lot of the books that I showed in my unhaul video there to go and basically clear them out of my office. And I haven't really been reading manga lately. It's not really something that I have as much of an interest in unless there's certain topics. And when I was going through my bookshelves, I came across Blackbird. And this was a manga series that I only have, I think, the first 4 books of. And as you can tell, the cover kind of seems rather intense. And so part of me is like, do I want to unhaul these books? But the other part of me is like, I kind of want to reread the first one just to see if the vibes fit or if this is something that I've completely grown out of and should unhaul, especially since we are going to a used bookstore tomorrow. So there's a couple of different prompts that this one could fit into. It could fit into the ugly cover, and honestly, you know, this is subjective, but this cover is not very pretty to me. I don't really like kind of like what it hints at or anything. So it could be that one or reviving a book that has been on my TBR for over a year. So we shall see, but I think I'm going to go and try to read this one and see how things go. And if I don't like it, I can unhaul it because we're going to a used bookstore tomorrow. Okay, so I did finish reading Blackbird, and I think I'm gonna unhaul these. So back however many years ago when mangas like these were made, it just kind of is gross because it was made to make the heroine of the story just kind of this damsel in distress, and just basically had these toxic love stories that had this idea of like what a relationship should be, what love should be, those types of things. And it's icky. I mean, even the cover is very icky. So let's say I did want to go and read the rest of the series. I only have 4 of the books. I think this has maybe 12 books or so. If I wanted to continue this, I'm sure maybe there's a way that I could go and borrow from a library or something like that. But I think I will be unhauling these books, especially since I'm going to be going to Second and Charles tomorrow. So I can get these off of my shelf and everything like that. I got the spot marked off for the ugly cover on the House Goblin card for the full Moon Readathon. So at least that spot's done. And technically I could almost finish that card because I think I just need a plot twist or something like that to finish the House Goblin card. But I'm not sure yet. I do have quite a few thrillers on my list that I'd like to read, so I'm kind of keeping those open just in case if I have another book that can fit for more than one spot. But yeah, at least we know. I'm gonna unhaul these books and call it a day there. And we're also doing a Ted Lasso night tonight at our house we're hosting. So I do need to make the Ted Lasso biscuits here soon. And I think I might DNF A Fairy Hunter's Guide to the Recently Undead. I couldn't tell you what that book's about. I'm just not retaining anything. So I think that's what I'm gonna do there. But I'm gonna take the stickers off of these books because I got them back when Borders was still a thing, which is still super, super sad. That was one of my favorite bookstores growing up. But yeah, I'm gonna take the stickers off of these, maybe play a little bit more Tiny Bookshop until Charles gets home, and then I'll make the biscuits because I feel like they'll be a lot better when they're fresh out of the oven.
Chapter 1. Death proves a poor. Despite a many-year courtship of long exploitation, I spent no more than an afternoon there before the unceremonious lady. So certain at my end, I will cipher.
Good morning, everyone. So we're going to be going to Second and Charles today for their penny a page sale. I believe it's up to 5 books. They have to be used books though, but up to 5 used books that you can go and use that whole sale for. So I have a little notepad with me that has a few books written down that I'd like to keep an eye out for. And yeah, I'm really excited to go. This is my first time going. I'm also a little bit nervous because I don't know how chaotic it might be. The past couple of times I've gone there has been during a weekday, and it's been a lot more chill than it was the first time Charles and I went. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how much the anxiety flares up, because if it's too crowded, I might get a little bit overstimulated and like want to leave. So hopefully that doesn't happen, because I've been really excited for this event and getting to go, especially since I'm trying to be better on buying books. And so this just sounds like a great way for me to get a few books that have been on my list for a better price. Also, I've been struggling with my eyebrows this morning. They're sisters, not twins. If you've been around since like the older YouTube days, you know, like when they say they're sisters, not twins, I feel like they're not even sisters. They're separated sisters. I don't know. Sisters separated at birth type of thing. Brows are hard. Brows are really hard, especially when you don't have brows to begin with. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm super excited to go, and I will give you a few clips, hopefully, if things aren't too hectic there, of the stuff that they have at the bookstore. And then maybe I'll do a little haul when I get home. I'm not quite sure. We'll just play it by ear because this weekend is super busy, but either way, very, very excited. So I realized that I never updated y'all on where I'm sitting for the full moon readathon. So Saturday, I believe it was, we did end up going to Second and Charles, and holy crap, their penny a page sale was just wild. This was the first time I've ever gone, so I didn't really know what to expect. But Charles and I, we kind of separated and we were looking for books and looking through all the shelves and everything. And it took a while for me to find some books because the thing is, the penny a page sale was only valid basically if you were a rewards member, but also the books that qualified, they needed to have like an orange sticker or a specific white sticker to show that they were used, thus qualifying them for the penny a page sale. So at first, the only books I was finding from my list were, of course, full-priced books, which was fine. I was like, you know what, I'm still gonna snag these because they're ones that I really would like to read. I had to go and like wander around a little bit, and I did go and find some actual used books to go and qualify. I ended up spending less than Charles, but Charles did find a few full price books that they ended up going and getting because they were D&D related. But yeah, I kind of inserted a little clip of all the books that I had and also what the back seat of our car looked like. I think I'm probably going to film a separate video going and showing a lot of those books just because there were so many that I got, and you know me, that will take a million years because I like kind of going and reading at least a sentence from each book just so that you get a little bit of an idea what they are. So sorry if you were hoping to kind of go and see that pile. So just kind of doing a recap of what cards I've kind of completed or some prompts for each card. Going off of the Grim Reaper, I don't really have any spots here for sure. There's one that says be dead for a while, take a nap. To be honest, I don't take naps. I'm horrid at doing that unless I'm sick or we're going for a road trip. I fall asleep in cars so easily. I'm like a little kid. So I'll probably just say, you know, like going to bed at night type of thing, because, you know, I'm asleep for hopefully 8 hours on a good night. So that prompt will probably be filled by that. And then involves death. That one is tentative because I could put The Only One Left by Riley Sager there, but because we still have a couple of days left for this full moon readathon, I'm going to hold off going and solidifying that one just for now until I know if there's anything else that can fit there. And then moving on to the spider, I don't necessarily have something for creepy just yet because I haven't finished the book, but there is one that I am thinking about putting there. Then the Fairy Hunter's Guide for the Recently Undead. That one does count for the 8 words in the title. However, I DNF'd it. I just couldn't do it. It felt like adjective vomit to me, for lack of better words, and even those words sound really mean. That was kind of the best way I could describe it, just with the overuse of descriptors for some of the events and the setting that was taking place in that book. It just really wasn't resonating with me and was making it so difficult for my brain to wrap around a lot of what was happening. So I DNF'd it. I think I got to maybe 36% of the book, and you know what? I'm gonna kind of count it, but also have DNF written over the top of it. And then for Capture Something in Your Web, Treat Yourself, I'm sure you guessed it, I am putting the book haul that I got from Second and Charles there because, you know, treating myself to going and buying a bunch of books, but also not spending too much for them because it was a penny a page sale. So, you know, that was kind of like not feeling too guilty about purchasing a bunch of books because, number one, they were used and it really wasn't breaking the bank at all, like I said. Sorry, I'm still waking up. Then moving on to the zombie one. I love zombies, so honestly, I would love to complete this card, but I'm not quite sure if that's gonna happen, so we shall see. But I haven't gotten anything for the first 2 prompts. However, for Use Your Brain, Play a Game, Do a Puzzle, I've been very obsessed with playing Tiny Bookshop. I've been playing it non-stop in all of my free time. If you haven't already, I think I might have mentioned it in this video earlier, but I do have a video that is me playing a little bit of Tiny Bookshop for the first time, and more than likely I'm probably going to continue playing that game on my gaming channel, just so I'm not pulling away and, you know, bringing games into this channel at all and keeping it more book focused, even though that game does involve books. And then for the last card, which is the Goblin, this one I'm pretty sure I will finish no matter what. So ugly cover, intriguing premise. I ended up going and putting Blackbird, that one manga book that I read, there, just because I'm really not a fan of the cover. I don't like kind of like what it's insinuating or anything like that with the cover. The premise of the book is really interesting, but also it's very dated, especially when you read the book. If you've read this book before, you might understand what I'm talking about with it. So yeah, I put that book cover on that prompt. And then Trickster will probably have a plot twist. I do have the only one left by Riley Sager that I might put there if I don't use it for the Grim Reaper card. So like I said, I need to see how some of the other books go that I'm reading for the next couple of days before I figure out which one goes where. And then for the last prompt, it says, House Goblin, check one thing off your to-do list. I did a bunch of laundry on my day off. So even though I was kind of gaming and taking it easy, I still did laundry and got a few things done that way. So yeah, that's kind of how it's looking so far for the full Moon Readathon. I am quite happy that I've gotten quite a few spots checked off. And then because I'm going to be going to work here in a little bit, I'm going to listen to another audiobook. And the one I'm going to listen to, I have through Everend, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This one has kind of been on my list for a while, and I feel like I've heard some people say that the audiobook is really good, so I figured this one would be a good one to go and listen to while I'm working. So I will probably check in a little bit later, maybe during my lunch break, and let you know how it goes.
Oops.
Good morning. So I figured I should do a little check-in on my reading progress. So currently I am on, I believe, chapter 20. So 70% of the way through with Hollow. And then for When the Wolf Comes Home, I'm on chapter 22 out of 63 chapters. And we'll start off with Hollow first. So Hollow is really good. It's a little bit not necessarily what I'd say like super scary for me. It is a young adult book, so that could be part of the reason why. And I believe the author kind of mentioned how if you like Midsummer, you might like Hollow. And I can definitely see that correlation, especially with a little town where they kind of have these interesting beliefs and bizarre actions and phrasing that they might use. So right now Cassie is kind of starting to see that there's stuff that's a little bit off on the group of people that rescued her. And then suddenly the friends that she figured had left her are found. However, one person in the group is still missing. And when they come to go and meet her, they're like, why did you run away, Cassie? But Cassie's like, you guys left me. So something strange is automatically going on there, because she's like, why would I leave you guys when you invited me to come on this trip with you and I'm trying to earn your trust back? Like, I wouldn't do that. So there's obviously like this miscommunication piece, and so she's trying to figure out that. However, she's also noticing that her friends are acting a little bit weird. Like Melody, she saw Caleb kind of messing with this doll that she's more than certain looked like Melody. And then the next time she sees Melody, her actions are kind of wooden and stiff. And Jack is the only one that's like, Cassie, you need to wake up. Like, there's something wrong going on here. But then Jack disappears, and then suddenly when she returns, she's like, oh, this community's great. Like, these people are awesome. Let's go and stay here a while. And Cassie is really struggling with what to believe. So there's some interesting pieces there. And then I can't remember if I said for sure that Cassie has trichotillomania, and the trick that she has is mostly like eyelash pulling. And when I started this book, I knew about that trigger. And so I was being very careful going into it, because for some of you that don't know, I also struggle with trichotillomania. It's something that I've dealt with, I believe, since elementary school. And it's been one of those things that I've tried so many different things to try to see if it would help me get rid of it. And I'm still in the process of figuring those things out. So when I read this book, I was a little bit worried that reading about someone else's trick would also trigger my own. And luckily, since it's a different one, that hasn't really affected it in any way. But I really think it's fascinating kind of seeing like what triggers Cassie's. And like with her, whenever she pulls an eyelash out, she makes a wish like, I want everything to be better, or help me get through this. And the pain from pulling the eyelash is satisfying at the same time. And I do really appreciate some of those details, because if you don't struggle with trick, you might be confused why those of us that have it do it. And it's just because there's like this satisfying piece to it, and it kind of helps pull us out of whatever moment is overstimulating us or causing stress in some sort of way. So yeah, I do really appreciate that representation there. And then with Cassie, I believe at the beginning when I did a recap, I was saying that Cassie is a lesbian. She's not a lesbian, she's pansexual. It kind of depends on her comfortability with the person that she's starting to gain feelings for. So that was kind of a little bit more present towards the middle of the book, and we got a little bit of a better understanding for that, because in the beginning I was thinking that she only preferred women or women presenting people. And then moving on to When the Wolf Comes Home, I'm enjoying this very much. I really loved in the beginning how the author is one of the narrators for the book, which I love. I don't think I've come across that yet with listening to audiobooks, but I didn't really get into audiobooks as much until this year. I think it's really been helping me, especially in moments where I'm in a little bit of a reading slump. But I love in the beginning that they read their own content warning, and just the humor in it just hit my funny bone so well. So I really appreciated that. And then with the story, there's a few mysteries, and I'll have to go and check the synopsis for the book because I don't want to accidentally give any sort of spoilers. But our main character, she's kind of a not so famous actress. She is kind of trying to make ends meet and just trying to go through the motions of her daily life while hoping that some audition that she does will get picked up. And so she's kind of feeling down on her luck, and she's working at the restaurant and has to go and clean up some not so great things, and kind of rushes out of there because she gets pricked by a needle in the process of cleaning something up after a sketchy individual. And while she's leaving, she ends up going and finding this little boy who is really shaken up and asking for help. She's like, sure, okay, I'll go and rescue him and bring him back home, and maybe we can figure out what's going on and I can get him some help. Well, while they're over at her apartment, suddenly she hears some sort of fight outside, and she goes and peeks out and sees a naked guy fighting with her neighbors. And she's like, oh, okay, this is a little bit weird. Maybe I'm gonna go back in. And things escalate, and suddenly there's this wolf. And the wolf seems to be chasing her and this little boy down everywhere they go. And the boy is very, very terrified of this and kind of mentions their dad. And the gal is just kind of like, I don't really know what's going on here, but okay. And there were a couple theories that I had while reading this, especially when it came to the little boy and potentially his dad. And like I said, I'll have to read the synopsis because I want to make sure I don't go and spoil anything. But at the part where I'm at right now in the book, my theory has been proven correct. So that kind of feels interesting. You know, sometimes you don't necessarily want your theory to get proven right away or answered right away, but at the same time it was really satisfying. And now that I know kind of what's causing things, I'm really curious to see where the author takes things. So I'm really excited to continue listening to that while I work. And yeah, I'm realizing that when I do recaps, I can't be quick. So this reading vlog might be a million years long. We shall see. But if anything, that will just give you some cozy company to have while you do chores or whatnot. Morning, everyone. I'm realizing that this has kind of been the spot for this towards the end of this vlog. I'm so sorry. I've just kind of been lazy and feeling like, you know, this spot works. It's super easy. My camera's already hooked up. So yeah, hopefully you don't mind that. I'm a little bit shiny because I've been trying to go and work out a little bit in the mornings again. So knock on wood, every time I try working out again, I always end up getting sick and backtracking completely. I've been slowly trying to get back into working out, just mostly to feel healthy and rebuild my strength up, because a couple years ago I got COVID, and one of the things that happened after getting COVID was I got asthma. So if I overexert myself a lot of the time, I get really raspy and I have to use my inhaler. So I've been slowly trying to rebuild up my lung strength and everything, and just ultimately be healthier, especially since I work from home. And so yeah, that was kind of what I did my morning. Just a little bit of a recap on book stuff. I have around 2 hours and 14 minutes left of When the Wolf Comes Home. So I just had to go and look up the synopsis for When the Wolf Comes Home because I completely forgot to check it last time and I didn't want to do any spoilers. So basically at this point there's been so much bloodshed. A lot of important characters have ended up getting killed off by this wolf, and now our main character and the little boy kind of feel safe. However, our main character had to go and leave to go to the doctors, and so she left the little boy alone for the time being. And so now we're kind of getting POVs from each of them and their different experiences at that period of time. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens. In this book, we've kind of gotten POVs from some other characters that get introduced, but it's mostly just like, I guess, a small little paragraph or like a couple of pages types of things. And it doesn't really take away from our main characters that we're focusing on. It just kind of gives us a little bit of a hint on what these other people they're interacting with are experiencing, especially if the wolf is introduced in those moments. So I do really like those pieces. I'm really enjoying Nat Cassidy's writing style and some humor here and there. I think this is the first book that I've read by them. So after this, I think I'm planning on going reading more of their backlist. And I'm very excited to do that. Yeah, that's kind of where I am in the book right now. There's been a few developments that have been a little bit surprising and making you rethink certain things, and I did really enjoy that. There's also been some pretty sad moments as well. Also, if you're curious, Nugget in the background, she likes to go and take mouthfuls of her food and then walk away from her food dish and eat them that way. It's kind of like she likes to walk and eat her food for whatever reason. So yeah, she's a little bit goofy there. And then on Hollow, I did not finish it yesterday like I had hoped. I'm on chapter 21, 75% of the way through. And at this point in the book, it kind of feels like Cassie is now realizing like enough is enough. She needs to take a stand. Her friends are basically going to be lost if she doesn't stand up for both herself and her friends to go and rescue them, because if she doesn't do so, no one's gonna do it. So she's been dealing this whole time with questioning her autism and wondering if she's overthinking things, if she's just paranoid, and finally she's realizing, like, no, I'm not mistaken. My gut instincts are right. We need to do something. So now she's kind of taking a stand and finding her inner strength, I guess. And so I'm very curious to see how this goes. It definitely is getting a little bit creepier. Granted, like, it's YA, so the creepy is going to be a little bit different. It's not necessarily terrifying for me to the point where I'm like, I can't fall asleep at night, but it's still creepy enough that it's super enjoyable. So I've really been enjoying this book. I love the representation in it. Representation, whether it's mental or physical, or even invisible. I love any representation in books because that was definitely not present when I was growing up. So yeah, definitely enjoying that. And let's see. So I did kind of put a few more spots down for the cards for the full moon readathon, but I'll wait until I actually finish these books and then I'll do a recap at the end because today is the very last day. So, I don't know if I'm going to be finishing off a bunch of cards completely, but I think I finished more cards than I did last year when I did it, so I'll take that as a win. Hey everyone, so I realized I never filmed kind of like a wrap-up for the full moon readathon and how well I did, as well as the books that I read. So starting off with Hollow, I did finish it a couple of days ago and it was really good. There was a little bit of a twist kind of towards the end that I kind of had an inkling towards, but then I was just kind of like, well, maybe it won't happen, but I was correct, and I did really like how it all tied up at the end. It was really good. I will go and say that this book is YA, so if you are planning on picking it up, it might not be absolutely terrifying to you, but it definitely is eerie. There also is a little bit of puppet horror in there too, so that was an interesting touch because I haven't read anything that involves puppets and horror per se. I feel like usually in video games I've experienced that more often instead of books. But it was quite enjoyable, so I did enjoy reading that. And then When the Wolf Comes Home was also a really great book. I still really loved the content warning at the beginning, and then also listening to the author's note at the end. I find more as I've gotten older that these are usually pieces that I don't skip over anymore because I just find them so fascinating, especially getting more of a inside look at the author's perspective and what influenced them to write the book and what special pieces they might have added. So yeah, I really liked When the Wolf Comes Home. There was a part at the end that I was just like, oh, it was so devastating. And then because of that devastating moment, it made me overlook a few details. So when some other stuff was added at the end, I'm like, wait, the book should be over now, right? And then that stuff was talked about and addressed, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. So it was really great. I really enjoyed that book. But just to go and wrap things up for the full moon readathon and how I didn't finish as many cards as I would have liked, but honestly, when I was looking through some of the prompts, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how likely it is for me to complete these. So it was completely understandable. So for the Grim Reaper, I did not finish the weapon prompt. For the involving death one, I put for When the Wolf Comes Home because there was a lot of death in that one. And then Be Dead for a While, Take a Nap. I don't take a nap at all. I'm not really a nap person. So I just kind of put a sleeping emote there to indicate, you know, obviously sleep. And then for the... I know. Always when I film. Yes, I know I love you. I love you so much. Oh, just a big baby. Just a big baby. You know, you're gonna get a lot of attention here soon. Yeah. So for the spider, I technically did complete this one. So I put hollow for creepy because there were definitely a lot of creepy, eerie moments. And then the Fairy Hunter's Guide for the Recently Undead, I put for the number 8. I did DNF this one, but I feel like because I got 30% of the way through, I'm just going to count it for this spot. And then for Capture Something in Your Web, Treat Yourself, I put a stack of books that we ended up going and getting from Second and Charles. So I did complete the spider card. And then the zombie, unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete either, which was a bummer because I'm a huge zombie fan. I'm obsessed with zombies. Anything that has zombies in them, whether they're movies, video games, books, count me in. But I did complete the one prompt for Use Your Brain, Play a Game, or Do a Puzzle. I have been obsessed with playing Tiny Bookshop, so I ended up putting the prompt for that one. And then for the last card, the Goblin, I did complete this card as well. So I put Blackbird for ugly cover, intriguing premise. I mentioned earlier that the cover really bothers me, and some of the mangas from back in those days just have very questionable covers, and it makes me wonder, like, why are you choosing images that kind of show and portray these type of things? So I'm putting that there. I feel like that prompt is purely subjective because, you know, some people might like a cover and others won't. So I feel like that's subjective for the person. And then for Trickster, we'll probably have a plot twist. I put The Only One Left by Riley Sager for that prompt. And then for the last one being House Goblin, check one thing off your to-do list. I did a bunch of laundry. So laundry is basically always on my to-do list, especially the weekends. I feel like I usually always do a lot of my chores on the weekends, just so I don't have to do that after I get off work and I can just relax. But yeah, I at least completed 2 cards this year. I feel like last year I probably only completed 1, so I will count that as a win, especially since I was dealing with an awful reading slump for the summer. So yeah, I think that was a job well done. I really love Jan's full moon readathons and how much thought she puts into the different cards that she has and the prompts there. So I'm hoping that next year I'm able to participate a little bit more and maybe complete all the cards that she has for us. But yeah, if you completed it, I'd love to hear what books you'd read and what cards you might have done. That concludes the end of this vlog. It's a little bit all over the place, very sporadic with a lot of different events and things that happened over the summer, but I hope you enjoyed. And as always, I want you to remember that you're worthy and capable of amazing things. Bye, friends.